Hey guys, welcome to A Counselor's Journey. I hope that you are doing well and feeling well today. I am here with Cassandra Solano. How are you, Cassandra?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I wanted to have you here to dive into two key areas, which you shared with me that will go hand in hand: healthy attachment, as well as the really beautiful work that you're doing on your Instagram channel.
Thanks so much.
So for those listening, tell us a little bit about your background and the work that you do.
Sure. I've been counseling since 2007, and I was working as a substance abuse counselor in treatment center. And so I've been counseling all the way as I've been going through school. And then I graduated from UCLA with my master's in social work in 2012. And I quickly kind of climbed the ladder with the Department of Mental Health, and I really thought I wanted to um, climb that corporate ladder and work in that
Yeah.
system. And I ended up going through a divorce with three small children and just getting really burnt out. I loved the work, the ideal work that
Yeah.
we were supposed to be doing, and the clients. I was a clinical director for a full service partnership program, which is essentially like a wraparound for the most chronic and persistently mentally ill folks. And we were actually able to house people and pick up people from jail and get them to safe housing. So I felt like the work was really valuable, especially working, in communities of like LA and downtown LA. Um, and I just ended up burnt out because a lot of the, problems in the system, unquote, made it really hard to do the job well. And then, of course, there's like the politics and all of that. So if you're in corporate management right now, like, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a lot to manage. And then just with my own personal things happening, um, working, so many hours a week, sometimes, 50, 60 hours a week, being on
Wow.
call 24/7, going through my divorce with three little kids. Um, my supervisor was pushing me to take a promotion that just because I could do the job, it would have taken me a longer commute, more time away from my kids, but I was kind of outgrowing where I was at, and there was some politics behind that too. So I ended up with vertigo, shingles, like all kinds of
Oh man.
illnesses. I was like sicker in that year, and this was 2017, than I had ever been in my life. And I was off for 3 weeks with shingles and
Wow.
took a lot of walks and meditated a lot. And I just realized I needed to really reassess my priorities, especially as a single mom with three little ones. And at that time, I took a step back. I just left the company to everyone's surprise. And I took a little kind of, I call it a worker bee, just easy case management job with a healthcare HMO. I took a $30,000 pay cut for that job.
Yeah.
But I was able to effectively make my own schedule. I was working from home before COVID and making my own schedule. And I started to be able to attend all my kids' like little award things at school or pick
Yeah.
them up and drop them off instead of having to have other people do that for me. So that was, anchoring and rooting into my values and what I felt like my kids needed from me at that time. And then as I had more, just less stress and more space in my head and more um, kind of time freedom, but also more energy freed up, I really dove deep back into my own personal development and started following some people online that kept talking about entrepreneurship. And I
Yeah.
wasn't sure why, but I just started listening to their podcast and watching their Facebook lives. And then I thought, I could start seeing maybe a client or two a week on the side to make some extra income.
Yeah.
And that was actually 2 years ago in October 2018. I put up a website and I was like, okay, I'm open.
Here we go.
And then nothing happened because I had to learn a lot of things about strategy and marketing and online business. I've done everything online. So I got a coach and I worked with him and his programs for just over about a year and a half. We just kind of wrapped up over the summer, and that support and having somebody, that was able to guide me not only on those like strategic things, but also on a lot of the inner work that I'm going to touch on today with how attachment and attachment theory ties into all of this was really, really essential. And then in April, actually, I left that corporate job, that case manager job, and I've been running my coaching business and providing for my family of 6 with that business for the last 6 months.
Oh, wow. What a story. Those are some
Yeah.
really pivotal points. And I was listening and I was like, man, that's a lot to take away, to see how you went through, I guess, the trenches. You went through the corporate ladder and then you sort of kind of seen your body, get hit by it. But you were able to do something that so many of us struggle with. And it's that fear of, let me step away from this. Let me take care of myself. Because for me, there's always like the uncertainty of what if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go right, and that holds us back. But just listening
Yeah.
in and having, getting to listen to your story, it's like, okay, I can do that too. There's a little bit of strength I can pull from.
Yeah. And that's where like some of this attachment stuff comes into play. In attachment theory, there's this idea of a secure base, right? And that
Hmm.
when a parent or caregiver is there consistently and responds consistently and appropriately to a child's like bid for attention or their needs. I think there's a study out there, Diane Pullheller quotes that if a parent responds 30% of the time appropriately in a timely response, the child will grow up with secure attachment. So you don't have to be a perfect parent. And then a lot of our healing as adults is about learning how to kind of build that secure base with ourselves.
Hmm.
So, our adult self can learn how to be there for our inner child or those younger parts of us that maybe are still scared or overwhelmed or triggered or, those like traumatized parts of us, that they're still there. They
Yeah.
like will maybe, not be so loud over time and start to heal and feel more comforted, but we all still feel like scared sometimes and
Yeah.
frustrated and triggered. That's like normal part of the human experience. So I think for me and my own healing journey, and before I like started on all my counseling journey and everything I went through, some trauma growing up, and then a very, very violent domestic violence relationship in when I was like 19, 20. And so I have PTSD, CPTSD, and I'm like always on this healing journey. And what's been so essential for me is to, heal that relationship with myself, to feel like no matter what happens, like I've got me, and
Yeah.
have that confidence in myself and that knowing in myself. And then for me, my spirituality is also a part of that, my higher power. That has enabled me to feel safe to take risks, because that's part of secure attachment, is feeling safe to take risk and knowing that even if it doesn't work out, even if that person doesn't say yes to a second date, or
Yeah.
even if you don't get that promotion, like you're still okay. It's not a reflection of you, and your whole world isn't going to fall apart. But I've been doing a couple of like just initial business coaching consultations with some other therapists and coaches. And what you brought up is actually something I've heard a lot. It's just that fear. And I think a lot of us, especially like in graduate school, have been taught like, um, working for a corporate, or really like, it's not just limited to social workers, counselors, and therapists. It's like our culture, the
Yeah.
capitalist culture of like, you have to, go work for a job, go get the benefits, like
Hmm.
get the retirement. And that's like safety.
Yeah.
And it's like, and we're been taught to believe that like corporations or our employers are going to be that secure base for us. And they're not. Like they will lay you off, they will let you go and replace you the next day, no matter how important you feel like you are at the end of the
Hmm.
day. Like nobody is an exception. And I'm not saying that to instill fear, but just want to encourage people to really step back and like think critically about your attachment. If you're in that space where you're doing the 9 to 5 and you would like to start a business or have been trying to grow your business, or maybe like me, knowing that you need to quit your job, but being too afraid to go full time in your business, which I was stuck in that place for about 4 months and miserable. It's not as secure as it seems. But at the end of the day, like when you invest in yourself and in your healing, whether with a coach, business coaching, therapy, whatever it might be, you know that you're like a sure bet and can feel like safe to take risks. So kind of went on a little tangent there.
No, that was perfect. And it's that mixture of being able to, put it together. It's being able to say it's okay to take a risk while feeling safe. And I guess from your end, you're looking at the attachment within, like being able to build a strong relationship with yourself, so that if you do fall down, you're like, well, that's okay because I've got me, and I know who I am, and I'm able to get myself back up. I think you're absolutely right. I'm kind of going back into like graduate school, and you're right, where there's like these safety nets as far as you go work for a nonprofit or this agency or that hospital, which all of them are doing beautiful, phenomenal work. But in a way, I guess it puts so much of our weight upon them to take care of us, versus the other way around, that we can take care of ourselves, and then we're going to go into the system and blend with it and play with it.
Absolutely. And so even if it's just, one night a week that you see a couple of clients on top of your 9 to 5 or something, just if you have that time and that energy and that's accessible to you, to start, seeing that, hey, like on my own, I can like generate income. Like I have the ability just in my own worth and work to have this energy exchange where I like can bring money to me. And I remember the first thing that I did when I started this just over 2 years ago, I had a women's circle at my house in my backyard. And it was like donation based, like $5 to $10. And I remember after we kind of took out for flowers that I bought and candles, I made like $12. We made like $45. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then minus the supplies, I made like $12. And I will like never forget holding like that money and feeling so excited, like, holy crap, I made this on my own without like having to like get it through a company. And that was such like a powerful experience. I was like, okay, if I could like do this once, maybe I could do it again.
Yeah. So you kind of get the ball rolling, and then slowing life down and seeing what's happening to build some of that confidence.
Yeah. And it definitely wasn't like a smooth road. So I'll talk a little bit just about like my attachment stuff and how attachment wounds can show up in our business. So just in a quick nutshell, like attachment, if you are listening to this, I'm sure you know, but maybe somebody in the car is listening with you and they don't know. So attachment theory is essentially like how we were attuned to, again, responded to, and taken care of and nurtured and heard, seen and felt and held space for, all of that stuff by our parents or our caregivers shapes how we do that in our relationships with ourselves, our romantic relationships, our friendships, and even in our business and with our money in our adult lives. So a lot of us think about attachment primarily with romantic relationships, but it's with really anything. Once we kind of even look at these things like our business or our finances as relationships, which they definitely are. So if you are somebody who identifies as more of an anxious attachment style, where there's this expectation of being left, you feel like the other shoe's always going to drop, you're anticipating abandonment because that's what you learned to do to survive your childhood because of inconsistent parenting, there's going to be like an experience of, okay, I put an offer out and nobody responded, so like never mind, or needing validation and approval, like, oh, I'm not getting a bunch of likes on my post, I must suck. Or, oh, my Instagram doesn't have as many people as their Instagram, so like I'm going to take that as a reflection of my inherent value and worth. And that might bring me into like slowing down or even stopping trying to follow through with my business. Or somebody with like a more avoidant attachment style where, you know, because of the almost lack of caring and nurturing, folks with avoidant have learned from a long time ago just to turn within and just rely on themselves and be a team of one. And you can probably get a lot done and be very productive that way. But again, things like intimacy and relationships aren't, in like close relationships, may not be your strong point. So in that case, you know, just like if you build trust and rapport with your clients, you're building trust and rapport with a bunch of strangers.
Yeah.
And that could like bring up some things too. So it might look like posting and ghosting, you know, like you
Okay. Yeah.
post and then you run away, or you are only posting like once a week, because it just feels like so much on your nervous system to like post and then check that post throughout the day and engage in the comments, which helps boost you in the algorithm, or to post every day, which helps boost you in the algorithm, or talk face to camera in your stories and teach, or make it Instagram TV, which establishes, you know, what's called know, like, and trust. So people can really get to know your personality,
Yeah.
and listen to you and understand you're an authority. You're not doing that consistently enough. So this is kind of just a couple of examples, like how our own attachment wounds can be showing up and impacting our relationship with our business and stopping our business growth, without us maybe realizing it.
Yeah. I am mind blown because as you're sharing those, I was like, well, shit, that makes total sense. You know, there's times where even from my end, I'll post something and that anxiety does come up. And I'm like, when did that take place during my childhood? Or even listening to different colleagues, and you know, if I do like a live and one of them will be like, oh, I wouldn't do that. You know, what if it's not right? What if it's not perfect? And then, you know, I never thought about, you know, looking at it from that angle. So I love that you're doing that. I'm sure that's going to help so many people to be able to, you know, sit down with you and say, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. What's the next step? How can I be consistent?
Absolutely. And, you know, I think for me, listening to like entrepreneur podcasts kind of outside of the therapy world, like
Hmm.
really helped me, because they're like, done is better than perfect is one of the sayings that you'll hear a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely get caught up on that too, of um, not trusting myself as an authority, or I don't know enough. Well, I don't have a PhD, or, you know,
Yeah.
and again, that's all of that old kind of colonizer mindset, I want to say, around what makes somebody knowledgeable and helpful and an expert and a leader, and somebody that really like can just help people and like transform people's lives at the
Yeah.
end of the day. Like we think it has to, you have to have like so many plaques on your wall, or you have to have X amount of years of experience. Um, and, you know, maybe you're just like out of grad school, or maybe you're even debating whether or not you want to go to grad school, or you just become a life coach, you know, and take
Yeah.
a certificate program on that. Like, it's so much, and we learn this in grad school too, right? Like it doesn't really matter what type of therapeutic modality, what the main variable in how effective treatment will be is the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just so important, again, just to do our inner work, and know that there's always going to be people behind you on the journey and people ahead of you on the
Mm.
journey. And the people in front of me are my mentors, and the people behind me are potential clients, you
Yeah.
know, and we're always on this like spectrum
Mm.
somewhere. Yeah.
What do you typically tell, you know, let's say clinicians, like me from my end, or those listening that are trying to get themselves out there, trying to build authority or a brand, why they want to help others move forward in life, but there's that maybe the anxious struggle or the avoidance.
Absolutely. So getting support from me, first of all, was so key. So if you yourself have a coach or a therapist or a loved one or a best friend, or maybe it's somebody in your family, that you can just be connecting with and getting that support and encouragement when you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I, posted something and then like somebody disagreed with me in the comments. This used to like wreck me. It
Yeah.
would totally take me down into that dorsal vagal shutdown response in my body. And over time, I've just built my, like capacity to like kind of withstand like the trolls and the haters, and that pool of resilience has been built. But that's because like I've had that support to kind of withstand that, because the more that you grow, the more that you are going to get those potential things happening too, or just people disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
So having support for me has been absolutely essential, particularly having, for me, my coach like really understood the business and then also how to work with my like attachment wounds,
Okay.
and helping me identify where I was, because of my past trauma, being scared to be seen, having difficulty with consistency, kind of like throwing out all this information and videos. It felt like I was just talking to the void and no one was reaching back. Like, hello, like little 2 or 3-year-old me, like being locked in the closet because I was like too much for my parents to handle because they had trauma and their own dysregulated nervous systems, like blah, blah, blah. So now I'm like feeling that very young part of me activated, like I'm reaching out and no one's reaching back. I'm
Yeah.
posting a post and no one's commenting. And I had to learn how to like get through and with support, soothe those younger parts of me and kind of get back on the horse the next day. So, having an online business is such a personal development journey. So a couple of things that I would recommend on the strategy side, because that mindset and support is so key, are, making sure that you are posting consistently. And I know if you are like me and you're doing a 9 to 5 while you're trying to start building a platform,
Hmm.
something content batching can be a lifesaver. If you were able to, maybe I would go to a coffee shop. Well, this was before COVID, but I had to actually leave my house and get away from my kids. And because there's always something to do at home.
Yeah.
And I would go with some books with my client notes, because that's how I create content, is just kind of, I can't just sit and like think of things to write. And that's like a whole other discussion about understanding your energetics and just how you work. But the way that I best create content is by responding to the questions that are being asked, by responding to needs. So take some time, 2-3 hours a week, to sit and just like write out your posts. It'll get faster the more that you do it.
Hmm.
So then during the week, you can just like post and engage with people. And it's really important that you do respond to, especially in the beginning, every single comment, that you try to build engagement, like responding to a question with an answer and then maybe a follow-up question. Obviously, we can't do therapy, but we can give a lot of validation or
Yeah.
maybe clarify things in our comments. So it's just so important, because you're building, maybe like, 9 out of 10 people that look at that post won't comment, but they
Hmm.
sure are looking at your comments and reading the
Yeah.
comments and
Yeah.
seeing, how are other people responding to this? Do other people feel the way I feel? And watching how you're responding to them. So you're building trust and rapport in your comment section by how you're showing up and how like soon you're showing up or not showing up to respond. You don't have to be glued to your phone, but definitely like once a day, be checking and engaging with your comments, and mixing it up with types of content. So, in the beginning, especially to establish yourself as an authority, it's important to put out a lot of like education and value-based content,
Yeah.
but also mix it up with things that are, just like general kind of like positive, like pumping people up and making them feel good stuff,
Hmm.
sharing a little bit about like yourself in your life, which can be a huge kind of breakaway from maybe what you've been taught traditionally in grad school that
Oh
therapy
yeah.
was about. That's so like old paradigm, and people are like, no, like they're over that,
Yeah.
of course you don't want to share like, oh my God, me and my husband just had a fight like an hour ago, and you're like crying on your Instagram stories. Like, don't do that. But you can share, if you, once you've processed and worked through something and you've kind of come to the other side and learned the lessons,
Yeah.
you can share, what feels like good and safe for you. And those shares have always like brought me new clients. When people are really seeing your humanity, when people are seeing that, okay, you're actually walking your talk, you're practicing what you're preaching,
Hmm.
that means a lot. And then talking or sharing your stories a couple times a week, or doing like Instagram or live video once a week. I would just do live video Q&As, or I would just ask people in my stories like to ask questions, and I would answer questions, either typing them out in stories or doing like a live video maybe once a week. I did that for a while, to answer questions that I was getting in my DMs.
Yeah.
So I needed to create some kind of boundary, because I couldn't be just answering questions all day.
Yeah.
But I would say, hey, this is a great question. I go live on Wednesday nights at 5. I will answer your question then, because I can't give specific advice. First of all, it's not ethical to do that. But I can answer it generally. And then I know that as I'm like sharing that, if one follower has that question, probably another one does too. And so I'll use that as like a live Q&A kind of content.
Okay.
So those are just kind of offhand, like some things that definitely help me grow my page. And do you have any like clarifying questions or follow-ups to any of that?
Yeah. So your main one is Instagram, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I've seen it over time, and it's continued to grow and grow. So from your end, you've noticed that showing up. But you mentioned something very interesting. You said that energy. Now, does that mean like if someone wants to utilize social media instead of just jumping on one, they need to find out like what's my style? I guess when I'm hearing energy, for me, um, mine wouldn't be to have these things written down like yours. It would be just to, and I've got young kids, so I'll kind of come down here in my office where I'm at, close the door, and just put the screen on, no documents around me, and then I just pull a past experience, and then I go into
Yeah.
it.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
So is that what you're
Yeah.
sharing as far as the approach to take?
Oh, in content creation?
Yeah.
I think everyone needs to find their own approach. And just something about me too, like I'm pretty woo-woo. And that's also why I like having my own business, because I talk about like the moon and nature and witchy things, and a little bit of like astrology. And there's another kind of system called human design, where if you like went online and looked up like human design calculator, you put in your birth information, there's actually 5 different energy profiles. And
Check that out.
so learning how to work with my human design type, um, and has been so helpful to me. Like as I'm what's called a generator in that system. So as a generator, I can work a lot, which actually kind of gave me relief, because I kind of like to work a lot and I don't
Yeah.
mind working a lot. Um, but as long as I'm doing work that lights me up,
Okay.
and then my husband is what's called a projector. So they're only built to work like maybe 5 hours a day, and they can get a lot done in a short amount of time. But if he's like having to work more than that much time, he's going to need a nap. And but he's also more of like a guide, a mentor, like somebody that's able to step back and like kind of reflect things back to me, and is somebody
Okay.
really good for me to bounce stuff off of, because I have a hard time kind of stepping back and seeing the big picture, and that's not a strength of my type. I'm more of like an implementer, get
Yeah.
things done kind of person. So we make a good team, and he actually does help me quite a bit with my business.
Well, nice. Yeah, I
Mhm.
like that approach there. I'll be curious. I'm gonna take that. I'm very curious on it, and I think my
Yeah,
wife will
yeah,
like it. She's into that.
yeah, yeah. It's been really helpful to me, and I look at all this stuff with my clients that I work with to help them better understand themselves and how to work with their energy. So just a little kind of side thing, but and there's a lot of people who are coaches that specifically help you work with your human design type in as a business owner as well. So it's like a whole
Oh,
thing.
oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation for clinicians that are trying to build their presence on social media if they find themselves stuck?
Get support. I just cannot say
Yeah,
this enough.
you say that over and
Yeah,
over, which I
I
love.
know.
Absolutely.
I know. I know. Like, don't be stubborn. I know you're licensed. You probably have like a bunch of, even if you have a bunch of certificates and like whoop de woo, but you've never done this before. It's new. And remember, to your nervous system, same is safe and different is dangerous. And even though you might have all the experience and maybe even all the strategy, or you just like are self taught for how to start a business, at the end of the day, like that primal brain of yours is just going to want to pump the brakes
Yeah.
and like keep you safe by keeping you small, keep you safe by having you not take risks, by not putting yourself out there, by not self-disclosing a little bit so people can really get to know you. Because that's what's going to make somebody decide at the end of the day, like once you've kind of built that foundation of trust and establish your authority, which if you're a clinician, that kind of already gives you some authority. But what's going to make people decide to reach out to you to work with you versus somebody else is those personal things about you. You know, are you into like social justice and anti-racism, or are you into astrology, or are you a parent? Like these are all things
Yeah.
about me that so when people come to work with me, they're also like in alignment with my values. I don't ask for that or screen for that, but I just am kind of sharing about these things here and there, or in my stories, resharing other accounts that are into these things can, you know, so people are seeing that and they know what I'm about, and they know that maybe, hey, I'm not for everybody either, and that's okay. Like, don't be afraid to like take a stand on something, even if it means you lose some followers over it. Like, those may be people that you don't enjoy working with one-on-one anyway, if they're not in alignment with your values in some way. um, and it's okay. Like you know, deserve to have a practice where you're working with clients that you just like love to work with, that are just motivated and in alignment. But you have to like attract them, and that requires you doing some of that self-disclosure. So if, you know, being consistent, or you know, hot and cold, or feeling like I don't want to put myself out there in some way,
Hmm.
or playing small, or not, I don't know, maybe you're like have your prices really too low.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm all for like having sliding scale and creating accessibility. But there's all of these like little stuck points that we could be having, and it's like it's a mindset issue to a certain extent. And we can talk about just again how graduate school has, especially for me being a social worker, has had really indoctrinated me to like believe like, well, I'm in this for the love, not the money.
Hmm.
And, you know, and I just should accept like a, you know, a $40,000 job, like, you know, as a licensed clinician, or like whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, wanting to make money is like a dirty thing. It's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so I had to like deprogram a lot of that stuff, and having someone to process that out with was really, really helpful as well. Yeah. So even if you just, you know, again, join like some kind of client consultation, you know, like with other therapists that are in private practice, or form something like that to co-regulate and to connect
Yeah. Good
to help
idea.
you get unstuck. That could be really helpful too.
Perfect. I love those. I think you're absolutely right. There's so much that was ingrained, in that clinical mind during grad school, money, right? I think the other one that comes to mind that you touched on today was that the boundary, at least it was pushed on me of having that really strong distance between you and the client. But then you go into social media space and I like sharing that my kids, or that I did something,
Mm-hmm.
regarding parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that little voice in there that goes, is that too much? But you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as time goes forward, those that we serve are going to appreciate that it's not just a blank slate that I'm speaking to. It's another person who, is going through life just as I am.
Yeah. And you know, all of us as a collective, we're just shifting so much. People like our consumers are smart, you know, and they really want to know if they're going to reach out to work with somebody, that they have that know, like, and trust, and that they're
Mm-hmm.
investing, you know, in that. And especially if you're like wanting, you know, to charge prices in a way that you can like sustain yourself and not be stressed about money. Um, when you really have that know, like, and trust, it's not like a big issue when you tell how much that your fees are or your packages are or whatever that might be, because people are like, I know you can help me with my problem. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, like if either
Yeah.
they really can't afford it, and then maybe you have some other groups or things like that available, or a sliding scale, or they're like, I'm going to make it happen. So I just want to share that little bit too, because that also kind of leads into, you know, down the road. One last thing I'll share is that they say it takes about 6 months of somebody following you online to be ready to buy from you, for them to become a client. So what you're doing today is going to pay off in 6 months, but so how are you showing up today? You know,
Mm.
we got to really build that foundation. I posted every day for my first probably year and a half. I think this summer I took like a week off to camp, and I was like, posted it like out of the office.
Yeah.
And that was really great to be able to do. But for me, having that consistency, or as much as you're able, I know people are working and have families and things like that, and it can just feel like a lot. But can you maybe like hire a little cousin who knows social media really well, or
Mm-hmm.
a college student or a VA, to, you know, and that you could trust with your Instagram stuff to log in and to put your posts for you. If you look at your analytics, which I suggest you get a business or a creator Instagram page so you can have analytics, and you're looking at, okay, most of my followers for me are online between 9 and 12 a.m. or yeah, 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. So I always try to post in that window. And if I'm not able to, like, are there other things I can do or other ways I can get support to help me with that? And it's like, maybe my husband does it for me.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, again, if I have a VA now. In the beginning, I was doing it myself, and I was like, I just need to post when I can, forget about the best time of day. I'm just like trying to get it done.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. It's just consistency is so huge, because again, you're building the relationship. And if you're like showing up once a week, again, you're not in the front of people's minds, and you're not building that trust and rapport. How would it feel like if you, let's say you had a therapy client, which this would never happen, but let's just say you had a therapy client that was like every day, you know, and they came to your office or to your Zoom every day, and then you only showed up twice for that week.
Yeah. Wouldn't be good.
Like that probably wouldn't be good. So treat your followers on Instagram, even if you have 10, even if you have 20, you know, like, you still have influence over those people, and how you treat 10 is how you're going to treat 10,000.
Mm.
So like, show full up for those 10 people, because you never know, like, if those are going to be your 10, you know, $150 an hour client 6 months from now. And like, yeah, so that's
Wow.
it.
That is awesome.
I just said a
Cassandra
lot.
Solana. You did. You said a lot. And
Yeah.
hopefully everyone listening, you were just rewinding and playing and rewinding and playing. I don't know why I said rewinding. Rewinding. There it is. That was a lot said there. And in that 6 months, and then being able to focus on 10. I think so many times, you know, people get on social media and it's like, I need 1,000 or 10 million or whatever that number is. But you're right. You know, when it comes to the work that we do as clinicians, I hope that, you know, when someone's working with that one patient, that there is a very valuable relationship. And if people just transfer that over to the online space, it's going to continue to create some really good changes. Cassandra, thank you so much for being here. If people out there want to contact you, pick your brain, work with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can. I'm on Instagram like every day. So definitely follow me there. My Instagram is at Cassandra_Solano. Or you can also reach out to me for an email. My email address is hello@cassandrasolano.com. And I do offer like one-off business coaching consultations to help you kind of troubleshoot and get unstuck and provide some of that support that I keep talking about.
Nice. Yeah.
So if you want to get on a call with me, you can email me at hello@cassandrasolano.com and I'll send you that link.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. And I'll have all that in the show notes. Guys, thank you for listening. Cassandra, thank you for being here. Have an amazing day.
Thanks for having me. Bye.